Time for another episode of the PEBAheads, and as always, you got Scott and myself here. Got lots of things to talk about today. Pennant races. We've got September call-ups. We've got some look into how some of the recently drafted players are doing, the ones that are now at the PEBA level. And who knows, we might go off on some random tangent that I'm sure people will really enjoy.
Absolutely. Or really hate.
Yeah. Depending on what that topic is, it's not really all that random. They're always people related. So, how you been, Scott?
Good, good. No complaints. Other than my team performance. Um, Started off the season pretty good and really fallen off a cliff here. Um, had a terrible month of August, and I don't think my playoff chances are like 0.9%. So not a great season.
So, we know your chances aren't very high. I think mine are even lower. I think you told me mine were like 0.1% the last
Yeah,
time
I
we
looked
looked.
the last time that was before yesterday's sim. I think you went down to zero, I think.
Probably. I think New Jersey won 4 games and we won 3 out of 4. So that probably did
We
it.
we could start with the pennant chase instead of the September call up since I already jumped the gun and talked about
That's all
my
right.
playoff
We
chances.
can.
But yeah, I think if you look at the stats lab page, uh, you're at 0% wild card, 0% division, according to stats lab. But and I think I'm slightly better than zero. Uh, I'm at I got 1.9% in Stats Lab. I think it's a little bit I think it's lower in game, but according to Stats Lab, I have a 1.9% chance of winning a wild card and a 0% chance of the division. So the best looking teams right now, according to Stats Lab, are uh, Hartford. Looks really good. 94% at their division, 99.7. Florida is 100% postseason odds. London's a 99.8. Crystal Lake, 97% postseason odds. Uh, the Ava's 99.9 postseason odds. Ghosts, 87.3. So, if you were a predicting person, you would say that Stats Lab is, pretty on the nose. If you were asking me to predict the playoffs, I would say the Avas facing off against the Far Striders are probably where I put my money.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because once you start looking at teams head to head, it's like where do you attack the Avas? Where do you attack Florida? How does my team adjust to what they do well? And both teams are very deep, and it makes attacking those areas even more challenging. I mean, I can speak from experience from having to play both of them last year in the playoffs, and there are definitely some things that I was thinking about doing against the Avas that I ended up getting talked out of by a couple other GMs in the league that I was talking to about it. But
Do you regret being talked out of those strategy decisions?
I think if I was playing real baseball, I would have been regretful of doing what I did, but I don't know how much of an impact it would have made um, in this version of the game because I mean, I can be fully upfront about it because I don't think it would have changed anything that Kevin would have done. But I think with as many lefty hitters that they have in their lineup that they start against both left-handers and right-handers, I think I'm surprised more teams don't attack the Avas by using right-handed openers or left-handed openers to attack um, lineups that are so heavily left-handed. I know it's harder to do that during the season, um, especially you're doing 7-day sims, so lining up everything for that to work the way you want it is a little bit challenging. But if you have multiple left-handed pieces in your bullpen, it's definitely something I wish I would have done with at least two of my starters. I probably wouldn't have done it with Padilla, but pretty much everybody else I think would have possibly benefited from having a left-hander pitch to the first, I don't know, 5, 6 batters in that lineup. So it's little things like that that I don't. If you watch Major League Baseball, you're seeing more and more teams start to do it. The Rays were kind of one of the first teams to really get attention for doing it because they were doing it in the playoffs. They had been doing it throughout the regular season a few years ago, but teams like the average fan didn't really pick up on the why behind it or what the thought process was. And I mean, they did it in the playoffs, and you had the old school baseball people just be complaining. The announcers were complaining about it, and it's it's one of those that you could really dive in on the strategy behind it. But I think there are people in our league that would be interested in the why, but there's others that would probably fly over their heads. So bottom line is you're maximizing your matchups to a situation where you control the matchup versus having to adjust in the game. And what I mean by that is you're having lefty versus lefty matchups guaranteed right off the bat, and you're limiting your right-hander that's following how many times that he's going to have to face those lefties later in the game. So it's just a way to rebalance how you do your innings. I know you want to go way back. When Lou Piniella was the manager of the Rays, he was famous for saying, you're going to criticize who I have close my games. I'm just going to have the closer come out tomorrow and start the game and then manage the game backwards from that. And then you can have something else to criticize. And what's funny is that's not that far off of the thinking of what teams are doing now, especially when you're not doing it with their ace pitchers, but when you got your 3, 4, 5 starter, if you can maximize their matchups to put them in better situations and for that third time through the order, it's uh, against not the elite hitters. I mean, it's something to work with, but in the game format of what we're playing, it's harder to. There are little things you can do to try to make it work in your favor with that regards, but it's a little bit more challenging because you're not having the exact control of how far you want that pitcher to go, when the one comes out, when the one comes in. If you do the opener thing and it's not going well, first 3 guys get on, maybe it's time to just bring the follower in right away, but the game doesn't necessarily do those type of things. So
Do you think
it's a,
that people in the league you do openers and followers much? I'm randomly looking at some of my box scores to see if I can find any team that's done it against me. I've just opened up 3 random games and the starter went 6 innings.
I don't think
So
it's utilized very often. I know over the years I've done it to normally like at least like 2 guys in my rotation, but in this version of the game, what I've noticed is it seems like starting pitchers really get there are ones that adapt well with the opener, and then there are other ones that their stats just go to hell if they're coming in as a follower. And I thought that it might just be randomness in the game, but immediately when I moved them back to being starters and just not having an opener, their stats improved. So could be small sample size, but I do think there's something coded there where starters want to start, and if they're not brought in as a starter. There's something holding them back there, but there are guys that like one of my pitchers right now. I had used Manuel Melendez. I had him as a follower for most of the year, and then he was great in that role. He had a 2.55 ERA, and I this was more of just experimenting to see what would happen, but I moved him to back to just being a regular starter, and his ERA is up like zero point 0.8, so he's a 3.34 as a starter versus as a reliever 2.55. Now, granted, as a starter he's got 32 innings, and as a reliever he's got 95, so there's still a sample size issue there, but it's one of those where my team's at the point where I can kind of just mess around and try different things like that to figure out for how I want to play next year, really, at this point.
If we're
But
looking back at the pennant chase situation, it looks like the IL is pretty much set. Like I would be, I know we still got almost a month left to play, but you've got a 6.5 game lead by Hartford over New Jersey. In the Seaboard, Florida's got 13.5 lead over Charleston. In the Dixie, London's got an 8 game lead over Havana in the transatlantic. So I would be surprised if those teams don't win their divisions. Also, Crystal Lake with their 6.5 might be feeling pretty comfortable. But the two divisions that are going to be the most interesting going down the stretch in this month of September are going to be the Desert Hills and the Rising Sun. Any thoughts on who's going to come out on top? Obviously, I think those teams that don't win those divisions, you're going to have some wild card teams coming out of both of those, right?
yeah, like on the IL side, it looks like it's pretty much just a battle of seeding, really, for the last three wild card slots. There's all three of those teams are pretty close right now, but 4.5 for New Orleans is going to be tough to overcome at this point. It can be done, but it's they're going to need a little luck there. Um, it's going to be I think it's going to be interesting to see with the Desert Hills how that shakes out.
Yeah, if you
Um,
look at that pennant chase page, so Tempe's got 6 home games, 19 away. Palm Springs has got 16 home, 9 away, and so does Aurora. So, I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but there is a coded, it's an in-game advantage playing at home. Um, so Tempe's got a slight disadvantage despite having the 1 game lead because of the number of away games they have compared to Palm Springs and Aurora. I would like to point out, we had a lot of discussion about the schedule last season, and yes, we were all told to look at our schedules and see if everything looked okay. But Reno has 3 home games and 22 away games to finish up this season. And I thought that was an obscene number of away versus home for the month of September. So
yeah, that will definitely be something
that
that should
probably,
be looked at because
and
like I get it, you're gonna have home and away stretches, but that one seems a little bit excessive at the end. I mean, Reno's too, like at 6 and 19 seems a little bit too long, and I know it's easy to since we're not the one that made the schedule to pick these things, but it's not a pick on situation. It's just a situation that like what drove the schedule to be changed last year that can be looked at in off season and just kind of maybe you flip, maybe there's an extra series or two that you can flip the home and away now, like if for next year you can flip it so that you have a home series that's who do you got? You got maybe there's a Kalamazoo one where you could flip it where you're at home instead of at away for this one, or I know they claim there's multiple versions of the schedule, and if that's the case, then it kind of even furthers the point of there might be more changes that are needed because if this is happening, if your team's like this now, then I would assume there are other teams probably within your division that had the opposite at some point within there, but I don't really want to spend the time going back and looking at it right now.
No, if you look at the Rising Sun, the Avas have the worst of it. They've got 9 home, 17 away, where the Ghosts are 12 at home, 13 and away, and then Toyama has the best at 13 and 12. So just a one game home game advantage. So um, it'll be interesting to see how those two divisions shake out. I don't think that they're easily predictable. Like I would say any one of those teams can win their divisions. You know,
Yeah, and to be clear, we're not saying like the strength of schedule is an issue because really this is the most balanced
yeah,
schedule
no,
that we've ever had. It's just a
uh,
matter of an odd part of the amount of home versus away lining up that way. So,
yeah, I'm on record. I am very, very much in favor of the new schedule. I thought that we have a more balanced schedule than we've ever had, and I thought that was a very good development. So, and
yeah,
again, it'll be
so
interesting with these specifically with these two divisions because they're so close. The Desert
yeah.
Hills is closer, but one game. So again, Tempe's leading with Palm Springs 1 game behind and Aurora 2 games behind. Um, I think it's very difficult to predict which one of those three teams is going to come out on top. And then the Rising Sun, I would say the same thing. I mean, you'd probably go with the Avas because they are a really, really good team. They won it all last year, but the Ghosts are just 3.5 behind, and the Wind Dancers are just 4.5 behind. So those are the tightest divisions right
I
now.
think the way the schedule works now, there's a lot of division games within this last month for each of
I
these
think so.
teams. So it's going to really put emphasis on winning those games. And then also the teams that are in your division that aren't in it right now have an opportunity to be kind of a spoiler with possibly being able to, I mean, think Commissioner Mike brought it up in Discord, but Bakersfield plays, I think, three out of the four teams in the Desert Hills that are shooting for a playoff spot within the last sim or two. So that'll be interesting to see. Could be an opportunity for teams to get some extra wins, or it could be a spoiler role for Bakersfield. So
While we're on this subject, I think I'll say the Cliff Howard watch. There's there's another starting pitcher in next year's draft that I think is, in my opinion, the clear number one draft pick, just like D'Antonio was. And we've got Manchester, Arlington, and Yuma pretty neck and neck at 85 and 86 losses. So I would venture a guess one of those three teams will have the top pick in next year's draft. And I would be surprised if Cliff Howard is not the number one pick. Really good looking starting pitcher out of college.
yeah, and I think it makes it even more of a unanimous type pick than even what D'Antonio was, just because there's no hitter there that's even close to being as developed. Like, yes, D'Antonio should have been the number one overall pick and was the top player, but when you have what's his name?
Jose
Jose
Martinez. Yeah,
Martinez.
that dude's a beast. Can you
Yeah,
pull him up? He's
yeah.
what was it? Arlington? Who picked him again?
Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo. That's right.
He's got 22 home runs in 48 games.
No, he is
That's a
on
beast.
fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. 1.150 OPS. Good enough for a 214 OPS plus. I mean, the guy can hit.
Yeah. And OSA likes him more than my scout does, but that doesn't mean my scout doesn't like him. he's a beast. And
Yeah, he's got 22 home runs in just 200 plate appearances. I think that might be over 50 home runs in a full season, his pace.
let's see if it'll. I think if I filter by major league and then the
It's just
160,
like
yeah, the
so yeah,
162
200
average is
that's like 60,
73.
right? 200 plate appearances, right? You can get 600 plate appearances.
Yeah,
So that's like over
60,
60
65
home
home
runs.
runs. Yeah.
Yeah, what a really nice hitter, right?
Well, even like if you look at OPS plus and we go to, he's at 214. Doesn't have enough at bats to be qualified, but if we just do combined, I think the top player in the league for OPS plus was, where am I looking at? It's probably smack me right in the face. Down here, Wendell Guinea from Crystal Lake, 180. He's at 24. Martinez is at 214. Like that's like old time Vito
Yeah.
numbers from Florida.
Yeah, no one with who qualifies has got, a 1 point something OPS. Everybody's 993 is the top. Uh Lee Ping Chen from Hartford at 953. And then it looks like number three who qualifies is that Wan Ho Pak from Aurora, 926.
So yeah, it's
And then of course Michael Roberts from Tempe, who's an
beast.
outstanding
Yeah.
hitter, 924. So those are the top OPSs in both leagues right now.
Let's see what that
So
poor Vito is at right now.
the
Just
aging, the
yeah,
aging.
the shell of himself at 153. Still nothing to be mad about. But yeah, back in his peak, he had a 224 OPS plus 1 year. He was averaging over 200 for multiple seasons. So
Again, I can't wait, to see what this Jose Martinez does next season over a full season. Like, is there something that's just lucky in how great he's hitting, or is this a real representation of what he's going to do going forward? Because if it is, he's going to be the best hitter in the league.
I think he's gonna be one of the best hitters in the league. Um, Everything I see when you're having that high, a good contact rating mixed in with the power, there are not too many guys that are 9 or 10 power guys, and a lot of the ones that are don't have a contact rating of 6 or 7, which is what my scout's showing him as possibly being able to get up to. So the way he's hitting right now it makes me believe that that 6 is closer to a 7 than a 6. So if that's the case, I don't see how I doubt the league's going to adjust too much to this guy because I don't see what his. I mean, there is a drop off between left-handed pitching and his right-handed pitching splits, but you tend to have that with power hitting lefties. So maybe
You
that's
want
we were talking about how to attack the Avas earlier. Maybe this is how you attack Martinez is with left-handed pitchers. So, which I mean, we could do a whole podcast of that division and see what the starting pitching looks like in that division. Maybe he's lined up well against right-handed starters and he's just mashing the ball against them. But
well, speaking of starters, D'Antonio, not a tremendous start to his career, but not terrible. He looks more pedestrian than Jose Martinez has in his early stages. If you go to his stats, he's got a 377 ERA, 7 wins, 3 losses, pretty good in 15 starts. Um, 9.8 Ks per 9 inning, 3.4 walks per nine, and a 0.9 home runs allowed. So looks like maybe the walks are the thing that are getting him. If you look at
yeah,
the game log, he's had a few rough games. So it looks like he's been on or off so far this season. Uh his first start was West Virginia, 5.1 innings pitched. He gave up 6 earned runs. Then he had a few 6 inning starts where he did really well, giving up 0 to 2 runs, then a couple of 1 run games. And then he had a bad, so there's really two bad outings that have inflated his ERA. That West Virginia game, and then he had a game against London where he only went 3 innings and gave up 7 earned runs. So if you dig into his stats, it's really two bad outings that have caused his ERA to be 3.77. I think that you could probably just chalk that up to youth.
Yeah. It's I think you just keep throwing him out there, and I don't know, maybe he's going. I don't want to help Michael too much, but maybe he needs to put a pitch limit on him or something. Like maybe it's that second or third time through the order that he's getting hit on. I don't know. Need to dive into it more on where the runs are, when the runs are actually being scored against him. But it looks like it might even be just there's one like there's 15 starts so far. There's one where there's a seven runs in 3 innings against London. Maybe that's just inflating it a little bit of
Yeah,
what.
if you throw out those two starts, the West Virginia start and the London start, he looks excellent. I mean, again, he gave up 6 against West Virginia and he gave up 7 to London, but then he only gave up 3 to Florida, and that was the most. The rest are 0, 2, and 1 runs. Only 2 games where he had seven innings pitched. This actually his last 2 games, he pitched 7 innings. So I still say he's going to be one of, if not the best pitcher in the league eventually.
Yeah, definitely he's going to be up there, and it looks like. I mean, I know Michael is concerned about his stamina, and it looks like almost every start he's going 98 or just over 100 pitches. So, and most of these starts are, I mean, going well past five. It looks like outside of the two that were the ones that were the outliers there.
Yeah, again, I think D'Antonio looks great this season. Just not as good as Jose Martinez so far.
Yeah.
But
Well, I know one player that we didn't touch on last time from the draft class was a player that's on your team, Steve Patton. Tell us a little bit about his start to his career.
yeah, he's hitting. I will admit, if you look at OSA, his ratings are higher than they are according to my scout. Um, my scout has him, fives, sixes in pretty much every category except for power. And he is just hitting the cover off the ball for me. He's got a 933 OPS and 196 plate appearances. I have been trying to limit him against left-handed pitching. So let's see. He's only got 19 plate appearances against lefties, and then 153 or 177 plate appearances against right-handed pitching. And he is absolutely destroying right-handed pitching so far. Again, much like Jose Martinez, I don't know how much of this is luck, and I don't know how much of this is actual ratings that are driving the performance, but I am highly encouraged by the start of Steve Patton to his career.
We were talking about it before we started, but there's a huge difference between what OSA has him rated at versus what both of our scouts see. Not that our scouts don't like him, but just he looks like
A beast.
OSA thinks he's
Yeah.
like one of the top hitters in the game, which is crazy, but
Well,
it's
you want
crazy
to touch
good,
on
crazy good.
touch on September call-ups? I was looking at some of them, and I didn't really see the most interesting one that I saw, and I admit I didn't look at every single team, I looked at all the playoff contenders. Hartford looks like they called up like a 24-year-old relief pitcher. Florida, the same thing. Uh, London didn't have anyone that I could see. Cleveland didn't have anyone I could see. Charleston didn't have anyone. Like the only one of the playoff teams that I looked at that had seemed interesting is the New Jersey Hitmen called up their first round relief pitcher. That I think that closer Blankhorn, if I'm saying his name correctly.
Which that was the other thing I'm gonna share the screen here. I had totally missed that Michael did it because I was just going and looking at each team's transaction screen, and for some reason it doesn't show Blankhorn on their transaction log. Normally you would see September 1st, this player was added to the 40 man. This one was uh, you know, added to the major league roster, but there's nothing there. But then, yeah, when you go here, um,
Yeah, the way I picked it out
here,
was when I went to his actual pitching page. It shows if you look at his Blankhorn's page, it shows him as 4 days of major league service time, and it's September 5th. So, but he
okay,
was he was performing extremely well. Went right from college again, first round pick, 23rd overall selection in the 2044 draft. Um, I think he's can't remember if he was listed as a closer, but he's currently listed as a relief pitcher. Uh, good ratings, excellent two pitches, a 10 potential fastball, 10 potential slider. And he went right to AAA and in 23 innings at AAA at 274 ERA. So you could see why Michael promoted him. I'm sure he's looking to get some quality relief innings out of the guy. Did you say he's got him listed as like a,
yeah, righty specialist. So right now, right now, he's definitely that makes sense to do. He's got a little exposed against lefties, but definitely can help against right-handed hitters.
no innings, right? He hasn't, even though he was called up on the first, he has 4 days of service time. I don't think he's had
Yeah,
any outings yet.
4 days and no opportunity to pitch yet. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, to see how he if he stays on the roster for the rest of the month and how well he performs. Uh, from his ratings, it looks like he should perform quite well.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like if he's not gonna get used by the game like you want him to, then you're just burning service time. Like, is it worth? So kind of gets into the discussion we were having about openers and how the game uses pitchers. Like this is another example of it where it's like you want even if it's bring him in for two back-to-back righties and then take him out. Like I'm sure Michael would have been happy for that to have been utilized, but also I know he's won 4 games in a row, so that could have possibly been it. But I mean, really, 3 out of the 4 games were pretty close. So maybe I don't know. I have to dig into what Arlington's doing to get a better idea of that of how their lineup's constructed. But I would think there would be parts of their yeah. I mean, pretty much from 5 down, you could bring in a righty specialist and probably be able to target or attack that lineup. So interesting. We'll have to definitely follow it. I know Michael is excited about that reliever when he took him, so we'll see what happens down the road here, and it should help solidify his bullpen movement and hopefully for him kind of lock down that wild card spot. But I think West Virginia was another one I noticed that of a team that's out of the playoff hunt, but brought up a lot of players probably to try to kind of get some at bats, get some ideas on how these guys are gonna perform at the PEBA level for maybe decisions in the off season for different spots or who might be on the opening day roster next year. So I thought that was a good way of when you are out of it to use this time to kind of get a second set of eyes or get some at bats for guys at this level to kind of help with your situation moving forward. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, it looked like not a lot going on the
Yeah, Amsterdam has 30 players on their roster right now. West Virginia has 30. I don't see a lot. There's a lot of teams with still 26 players on their roster. So there are a lot of teams that did not call anyone up yet. Uh, Crystal Lake looks like they went up to 27. So I don't see anybody who's, I mean, you're allowed 40, right? I don't see
yeah.
anybody who's anywhere near that.
Well, and our league is still operating under the old Major League Baseball rule of 40. I think it was 2018 or somewhere around there where they switched it to, I believe you only get two extra players now in
Yeah.
September, but there's more flexibility on moving players up and down. So a lot of teams will they'll have a couple extra relief pitchers, and then when if they need a sixth starter, they'll call somebody up and move one of the relievers down, and just more flexibility with how that works. I'm kind of glad that we never switched to that because it just becomes a if you're doing daily sims and one game at a time, that type of stuff I think is easier to manage. But the way we do it, I think having the greater flexibility with the 40, even if you don't get up to 40, makes it a little bit
Yeah, two at
better.
30, and then San Juan has 29. Those are the three teams with the most call ups.
Yeah, and I kind of handled it similar to how West Virginia did. I'm up to 30 for my team, and it was really just about getting guys extra looks that I think can contribute for our team next year. So like I called up first baseman Conrad Mayer, who was in the trade I did with Cleveland. Um, One of those guys where I think he could have a future at PEBA, and right now he's ready to hit against left-handed pitching. So just bring him up and see what he can do. Similar with my outfielder Art Johnson, he was ready to go against lefties. Needs a little bit more polishing against righties, but his demand was he thought that he should be at the major league level, and I'm like, you know what? Let's see what he can do. Have him put him
How
in a
much do you
situation.
how much do you pay attention to that when they're I mean if they're
I pay
performing
attention
well at
to it.
AAA and they're demanding it, I get worried that it might harm their development, those two things.
Yeah, especially if the team that they're on isn't winning, because then they're getting pissed by not winning. They're thinking that they're better, they should be at a different level. And I know a lot of the demands, it's not just player personality, it's also the players that you have on your PEBA roster. So if a player believes they're just as good or better, that's when another way that triggers that I should be up there type of thing. But in the case of Johnson, once I did call him up, his expected role switched to bench. So I didn't feel as bad about using him the way that I am because there's sometimes guys you bring up and they expect to be starters, and then you worry about that aspect of not from a development standpoint, but from a being pissed off
Yeah.
standpoint. Like, so everything I've read has said that having calling guys up and having them be bench players at the PEBA level does not impact their development. But if you keep them too long, too or keep them down too long in the minors, that can have negative effects, even if they're tearing the cover off the ball. Sometimes that might be more detrimental to their career because they're not being challenged enough. So, like, I've, it's it's a hard decision to make with some of these guys, but September is definitely a nice testing ground where you can get a month worth of at bats or pitching innings just to kind of see how they're gonna, you know, handle that next jump. Might
Right.
be nothing, it might be something. But
Well, you
I was
want
gonna
to,
ask you one quick thing about September call-ups, and I know I handle it differently when I'm in a playoff race versus when I'm not. Do you
yeah,
similarly, do you have different ways of
absolutely.
handling it?
There's basically two strategies I employ with it. And I have not promoted anybody. I think I'm still at 26 man roster. I pull people up for development purposes, to see, like you said, if I've got somebody at AAA that I'm concerned about, taking a hit because they're just A, they want to play in the majors, and B, they are crushing it at AAA. And then the other reason would be if I'm in a playoff chase, I want somebody who can help the team win. Um, right now, I don't really see much at my AAA level that can help me. I've got maybe somebody that I could use as a utility infielder that I just drafted in this most recent draft. But you have to balance that with, do you want to start their service clock, right? There's service clock manipulation that is important in this game. We talked about arbitration, we talked about league minimum, you know, signing these guys to contracts. A perfect example is my closer. He did not pitch at all in the minors. He went right from the draft to the big leagues, and he wants over 20 million a year for 5 years. That's a lot of money. I just don't know that I have the budget space. So he's probably going to test the free agent market. And if I can sign him for less than that, I'll try to. But I just don't know that I can give a closer, even a good one. I mean, I wouldn't say he's the best closer in the league, but he's a quality closer.
He's
It's just,
one of the
is
best. Yeah.
is he worth 22 million a year? Maybe. I just don't know that I've got the budget space to pay him with my stingy owner for sure.
Oh, that adds another whole level of complexity to the situation for sure. I
Right. But
know,
I'd have him for another season if I would have been able to manipulate his service time and not bring him up right out of the draft. Right.
yeah. I mean, I was talking to Rob from Pulse Springs about this earlier this week, and I don't have any problem telling the league it, but like when I'm competing, the only guys I'm bringing up are guys I think that can make my team better. Like I'm not testing things out to see what they're going to do next year. I'm worried about winning games that last month to make sure that you're in as best playoff seeding as you can possibly be. And also, I think the other thing people forget about that's really important is if you're a playoff team and one of these guys you bring up was not on your 40-man roster prior to September 1st, they're not eligible to be brought onto your playoff roster. So I don't bring, if a guy's not on my 40 man, I don't bother bringing him up. Or if I do know there's a guy that I make sure that I put them on the 40 man prior to that September 1st timeline because if you don't, you can't you can't bring them up. It doesn't matter if it's an injury or not. They got to be on your 40 man. So it's another area I think that gets overlooked, but I don't know. People will say you can also make the argument if a guy's gonna make your team better, why aren't they already on your team? And there's some validity to that, but also there's roster management and there's only a certain number of spots. So when that opens up, you might be able to afford a blank horn only being a righty specialist on your team, but you don't want him like maybe Michael was thinking, I don't want to expose him to every day pitching and then get rocked by lefties and totally mess up his development. But now with the expanded roster, you can kind of pick and choose those times to use them and start building that moving forward. But I know the last topic we wanted to talk about was the upcoming draft. We kind of talked a little bit about it by one of the starting pitchers who we thought was going to be probably the number one overall pick, Cliff Howard. But
Yeah. I think there's three players in there that look like they could be the number one. There's definitely two starting pitchers I was looking at that good potential and fairly well developed. And obviously, we've got another uh, several months of in-game time for these guys to continue their development. So I expect those actuals to keep going up. But that Cliff Howard is a really interesting looking pitcher.
Here's Howard. Now,
Looks
this is
look,
another one where, I mean, I don't have a problem showing it because I'm not going to be able to pick him. But my scout, like the difference between OSA on Howard and what my scout says, I mean, that's a huge. You go from a good pitcher with some shady control to 5 or 6 control just by a difference in scouting opinion. Like that's pretty large jump there. And then uh this is
yeah,
the
he's
one,
a
and I think Brian and Tempe brought it up during the draft last year, and he didn't really get a really good answer on it, I thought. But how so how do you go from OSA saying 7 potential stuff to like the big change I notice here is like the curveball jumps up to a 10 potential. So obviously it's liking the pitch mix with the curveball being a 10 versus what it was as a 9. And then it looks like the slider went up to a 9 and then the sinker went up to a 9. So those it just shows kind of the importance of elite level pitches versus your even an 8. Like there's a big difference between how the game's weighting the difference between an 8 and a 9 and then a 9 to a 10. But yeah,
yeah.
Howard looks really good.
My scout's got Cliff Howard looking better than this other pitcher who's named Peter Campbell. But OSA looks like it likes Peter Campbell better than Howard.
Yeah, wow. 10-7-9 with him.
I don't know what yours. My scout likes this Peter Campbell a lot too. He
Yeah.
just he just Cliff Howard looks just a little bit better according to my scout. But both of them look, according to my scout, both of them look like ace pitchers in the making.
Yeah. OSA's got Campbell with 3 pitches with 10 potential. My scout bumps those 10s down to 9s, but he still looks like a great player. Like,
And then another guy that looks really good according to my scout. Let's see what I'll say. On the hitting side, the best player now this guy, Robert Carter, a second baseman in
gotta find
college,
him. Here we go.
he looks he looks the most similar between OSA and my scout.
Yeah.
But he looks like a really good player too. Those three players I wanted to highlight as three really interesting looking all college players, right? Um, who have really good ratings and potential. So very developed, high potential. It looks like they should go really high in the draft next year.
That guy reminds me a lot of my second baseman, Eric Nelson. He's not going to kill you on defense. It looks like he's a above average defender at second base, but his hitting is way above average for a second baseman. So it'll be interesting to see where he falls. I mean, there's a lot of high potential hitters in this draft, but it seems like their actual ratings aren't as developed as what we've
Yeah.
seen the past couple. So
And I will also note that there's some 16-year-olds listed in here. And as we talked about on the podcast where we had Dylan on, what you really got to do is look at how old, make sure that they'll be 18 at the time of the draft because they won't, these 16-year-olds will not be in the draft
won't be
class
in
once.
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So despite the fact that like we got this, I got a shortstop. Whoa, he's got a lot of potential. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Xiaomedai. Exeo May Day. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
I was gonna say
He looks
if Matt is watching this, he can correct our Poor
I'm
Asian
sure I pronounced it
pronunciation.
wrong. Uh, Desperately in need of a nickname, but he's not going to be in the draft. But he looks like by the time he comes out, he should be a beast. I mean, that's some serious high potential.
Yeah, it's just like, where do you, what do you do with this guy though? Like, where do you play? Like, his bat plays. It's just like, where do you
Well, let's
basically
see.
like? It looks like maybe a first baseman
Oh,
DH type.
yeah. Well, he could play left. You got to teach him. He's got his. Oh no, his outfield range is terrible.
Yeah,
I don't know.
he definitely has a spot. Like, he's definitely will be a positive kind. I mean, he profiles
Oh,
like a great
he's
leadoff guy.
he's
So
six. He's 6'3", which has got to be like the.
first
I'm going to say
base,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, he's a first baseman at 6'3". With those ratings, he could be a Gold Glove first baseman with his
yeah,
range
he
and
might be
air.
a 9 or a 10 over there.
Yeah, teach him first.
Look out, he'll be in your division with Aurora.
Yeah, he's got
Got to
some
replace
speed.
that $60 million first baseman.
Let's you know what? Let's check in on Ferrer.
All right, might as well. We got time.
We'll make it our last thing. This is our way of talking about the commissioner's team at the end, just to see if he listens all the way to the end. So he's looking pretty good, right?
Yeah,
805 OPS, 130 OPS plus, 20 home runs, which is monstrous for an Aurora team, I think. But that's a lot of money. $60 million is a lot of money to pay for a 130 OPS plus.
yeah. It's it's almost to the point of where we can like it's definitely worth bringing up, and it's definitely something that most teams can't do. But Aurora has the budget to be able to do it and has enough other players that are getting minimum where they can get by with this type of deal. It's just one of those where you have to be careful and know your team situation, but also know, have a plan. And Mike had a plan, and this is what he had the money to do
And,
it. So,
and a massively de-escalating contract. To put in
yeah,
perspective, 60 million this year, and his final year, his age 32 season, he'll be making 22 million. So,
yeah,
again, this is that's definitely 20 million dollar production, right? Out of first baseman.
yeah.
But and is he playing him at first? He's listed as a second baseman.
Listed as second,
Oh,
but I think he's playing
he's playing him at third. Let's see. Let's
third
check his
and
fielding.
first.
Mostly,
Kind of
yeah.
getting
So he's
rocked
got
at third,
yeah,
but
837 innings played at third, only 2 innings at second base, and then 239 innings. But it looks like at third base, looks like he's currently at third.
hmm.
But the bulk of the season he played at first base. He's got this Mark Newton at first right now.
Well, as one of my favorite movies of all time, uh, I like to use this GIF, however you want to pronounce it. I know people get all mad about that,
Oh,
but
great. Another
well,
controversy.
yeah, bold strategy there. We'll see how it works out for Aurora.
Yeah,
But
again, not to rehash it all, but that is an interesting division that I'm in, and I think it's safe to say that Bakersfield, Yuma, and Reno are not going to win that division, but any one of those other teams has got a shot at it. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
yeah, and with some of the other divisions that are just so far out of a race per se. I mean, we got some wild card races that are going to be fun to watch. It's nice to see two division races that are coming down to the wire there, and you're going to have multiple playoff teams from each one of those divisions. So,
Yeah, I know we talked about it before we started recording, but I would much rather be a 90 win team that's on a hot streak heading into the playoffs than say a 110 win team that's on a losing streak heading into the playoffs. It seems to me like getting hot at the right time is extremely important in how well you perform in the postseason.
Yeah, that's going to be something to kind of follow down the stretch here because he can have. We were talking about my team in my other league, and 2 years in a row, over 100 win team, number one seed, bounced in the division series. So unfortunately, after my sim last night in that league, it's looking like doing that same type of thing where projected for over 100 wins, but at the end of September, weirdly going cold 3 years in a row. That
Not
seems to be
not a good feeling.
that is not a I don't know how you I don't know how you adjust to that. Like it's nothing you are actually doing as a manager of making decisions. There's something else going on, and
There, there's a
you
luck
gotta ride
factor.
that wave if you
There's
do
a
get
luck
hot.
factor. Yeah. Again,
So,
even with the luck factor, and we you and I have discussed it in the past. What was it? Was it Charleston? What was the team that won
yeah,
it all that
Charleston
one
was
year?
one of them, and then Fargo was the team they played, and then both of them fell really hard the next season after that. Charleston's doing better this year. Looks like they'll be in the playoffs, and then I think Fargo's right there too of being having a they're right on the they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but they're having a lot better year this year than they've had the past couple. So Charleston went on that run. I know when Reno, like we've
Yeah,
talked about, your Reno team went on a big run like that.
the times that I've gone deep in the playoffs, I've noticed it was there was some luck there. I just happened to get hot at the right time. I had a pretty deep run last year, and then lost to the Avas, but it helps to get lucky.
Yeah. Well, especially, once you start getting into these short series in the playoffs, like anything can happen, even in the 7 game ones. Anything player gets hot, especially you get pitching that gets hot. It's hard to overcome that. So plenty of stuff to pay attention to the last few sims of the regular season, and then postseason starts. So we'll be back with more podcasts, probably at least one more before the regular season's end, and then try to do a couple in the playoffs, talk about what's going on, and maybe even highlight some areas for the people that aren't in the playoffs where they can start looking at things so we don't get into a situation like we do every year with Rule 5.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about for those of us who are not going to make the playoffs.
All right, thanks, Scott. It was fun.
All right, always
See
fun.
ya.
From the lakes of Duluth to Havana's warm breeze, Reno's desert lights glow where the crowds ever free. Shinseki's wars with the bats held high. Yuma's sandlot dreams touch the wide open sky. Palm Springs breathes the heat where the sun always shines. 32 teams united, crossing every line. From the dirt to the diamond, we're chasing the call. The roar of the fans, yeah, we're giving our all. And from the dirt to the diamond, we're chasing the call. The roar of the fans, yeah, we're giving our all. Swing for the stars in the Pebble game. Global fire, every city's aflame. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the fight. Planetary extreme, we're igniting the night. Oh, 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 Pebbles in there, Pebbles in there. Oh, 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 we're changing the game. Scottish pipers cheer as the bases are run. New Orleans rhythm swings till the battle is won. Tempe's rolling the dice with the fastball surprise. Toyota's precision lights up in our eyes. Now machines are strong where the dust meets the tree. Florida's golden fields where the champions gleam. From the dirt to the diamond, we're chasing the call. The roar of the fans, yeah, we're giving our all. And from the dirt to the diamond, we're chasing the call. The roar of the fans, yeah, we're giving our all. Swing for the stars in the Pebble game. Global fire, every city's aflame. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the fight. Planetary extreme, we're igniting the night. Oh, 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 Pebble's in there, Pebble's in there. Oh, 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 we're changing the game. 32 dreams, one world, one fight. From dusk Till dawn we're burning so bright. Every pitch, every hit, every play in the zone. The Planetary Baseball Alliance, we're never alone. From the fields to the stands, hear the planet unite. PEBA's the spark and we're taking flight. Swing for the stars in the PEBA game. Global fire, every city's aflame. From the crack of the bat to the roar of the fight. Planetary extreme, we're igniting the night. Oh, 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 PEBA's the name. PEBA's the name. Oh, 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 we're changing the game. So raise up your gloves, let the banners fly high. From stand one to count to two, we're reaching the sky. Planetary Extreme Baseball Alliance, where the legends are born. Swing for the stars, let the world hear our roar.